quite surprising is that when you look at what these new currencies have created, is that they've created a massive competition on who can mine most currencies and create the largest data centers to actually create new currencies. Now, those of you who work with cryptocurrencies know that mining is actually confirming transactions, so it's not really wasted work. But it does make me wonder just how much work we put into mining for Bitcoin and related currencies. Just the Bitcoin network in its computing power is ridiculously large. Ridiculously large. So who has the fastest supercomputers on the planet? Who has the largest network of data centers? Who has the largest combined computing power? Is it Google? No. Amazon? No. NSA? No, we don't think so. We think the fastest combined computing power is the Bitcoin network. In fact, the Bitcoin network is faster than the fastest supercomputer in the world. It's faster than the 500 top supercomputers combined. It's almost 300 times faster than the top 500 supercomputers combined in computing power. Does that make any sense? Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. And look, that's largely created with purpose-built mining hardware like this. This is from a company called Cowboy Miner, a unit called SP30. Here's an example of a data center which was built with those devices. Roughly $3.5 million invested in building a high-end supercomputing center for one purpose, for mining bitcoins. Of course, these devices can easily overheat. This particular data center was running in Thailand, and they did have a slight overheating problem last month. And it turns out they weren't even insured, so it was a complete write-off. Sometimes it does feel like we've built a monster. And attacks against cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and related currencies are various. Of course, we see theft of virtual currencies because it's basically like stealing cash. But it's even more interesting when the attackers go mining by themselves. So they realize that if they can convert computing power into cash, that computing power doesn't have to be your own computing power. You don't have to run your own data center. You can just infect other people's computers, and use their combined computing power to do the mining for you. What's even more interesting in that attack is that the attack is no longer targeting the user of the computers, it's targeting the computer itself. So the computer targeted doesn't need a traditional user at all. It can be something like this. It can be the Internet of Things. The computer is embedded in our appliances, in our cars, in our washing machines. We've had very few critical threat scenarios for devices like that. Like, who wants to infect toasters? Beats me. However, if you can infect 1 million toasters and combine the calculation power of that network, you can use it to make money. And this isn't just theory. We've actually found the first botnets built from security cameras, using the combined power of those security cameras to make money with mining. The headline here gets it wrong though. They weren't mining for Bitcoin because the Bitcoin difficulty is skyrocketing. They were actually mining for Dogecoin in here, which is much, much easier to mine. Nevertheless, sometimes it does feel like we've built a monster. And then we have the problems coming from the government. Of course, the NSA, the Snowden revelations, and of course what Russia is doing right now, especially inside Ukraine, with targeted espionage attacks like Cosmic Duke and Sandworm and so on. Governments have become one of the main sources of new malware. One recent example is what's been happening over the last 6 weeks in Hong Kong. We've all heard about the riots, people demanding their rights on the streets of Hong Kong. These riots are organized by a handful of volunteer organizations. And one of these organizations was organizing these events through the internet and through mobile phones. Of course, that's how you organize things today. That's how Slush was organized through the net. And they actually sent this message through WhatsApp to people who wanted to participate in these demonstrations. We shouldn't really call them riots, they were demonstrations. The problem, though, is that this WhatsApp message was not sent by these organizers. This WhatsApp message was actually sent from Beijing. We believe it was sent by the Chinese government. And the application you got to your Android or iPhone by following this link was a real application which could be used to communicate with other protesters and to organize protests. Unfortunately, it also collected your contacts from your phone and it collected your location and sent them to mainland China. By building the internet, we've built the perfect tool for the surveillance state. Through the internet, hostile governments can monitor what we do, where we are, who do we communicate with, even what we think. And sometimes it does feel like we've built a monster. The traditional enemies that we face in our daily fight are the criminals who do their attacks to make money, the activists who want to protest, and then the governmental attacks. However, we might right now be seeing a fourth group emerging. And that fourth group could be terrorists. And when I say terrorists, I mean real-world terror groups who now might be gaining the capability of doing online attacks instead of real-world attacks. And this is a new development in the United Kingdom 2 years ago. A guy who called himself Trick, his real name was Junaid Hussain. He was running this online hacker collective loosely connected to Anonymous. They did several fairly mainstream attacks, mostly distributed denial of service attacks to shut down websites, also defacements against mainstream websites to get visibility for their attacks. I guess their biggest thing was that they hacked the voicemail of Tony Blair and leaked his voicemail messages online. And this particular hack actually caused the leader of the gang, Trick, aka Junaid Hussain, to be caught, to be taken into a court in UK and sentenced. He was sentenced to 1.5 years in jail. However, before he started his jail sentence, he disappeared. He bailed. We lost track of him. We had no idea where he was for a year until this summer when he found him again. And when we found him again, he wasn't in UK. He was in Syria. He had joined the ISIS. And you can now find him from the ISIS Twitter feeds, posting threatening tweets against the UK government and the US government and basically any other government they have a beef with. And he's not alone. We actually have a series of examples of hackers who have joined ISIS. So for the first time we actually might have to start worrying about terror attacks online. We aren't there yet.